Hey everybody, how's it going today? Thanks for joining me as always. I love hearing the temperatures across the country, or across the world actually. I gotta turn my phone upside down. People are texting me. Forgot to silence the phone. All right, today, a few things first. I've got my British, it's a Blues Rock Masters latest edition on sale for 75% off. So super cheap, like under $20 for a course that's originally $80 or something like that. So check that one out if you don't have it, where I talk about Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, David Gilmour, and Jeff Beck. So four of my favorites. And it's a course I did with a little while ago with Brett Papa, and it's available on my site as well. So it's a special discount flash sale, 75% off. BV, thanks so much for being here. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, I will be in England at the end of November teaching guitar breaks. So if you want to join me there, meet us in person, and you are in England or Europe in general. No, it's not that far away, all things considered. I will be there at the end of the end of November. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm teaching with a guitar player named Ainsley Lister, and that's going to be a ton of fun. So check that out, BV, if you could throw that up there. I forgot to put that in my thing. All right, so today I'm going to talk about early Clapton a little bit, but John Mayall passed away last night, or yesterday, and I found out about it last night. I just want to talk a little bit about that, about him. I was going to have Jason Laughlin on with me, but I had so many technical issues, and I know Keith had a lot in Five Worlds yesterday, so I just didn't want to have another nightmare phone meltdown thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Mayall. So for guys, I think most of the people who follow the channel or know me know John Mayall's history, so I'm just going to read a little bit. I think it's really kind of amazing. This is from a Vanity Fair article, because I'm somewhat of a historian, but not fully. John Mayall and the Blues Breakers were the clearinghouse for generational talent. Eric Clapton quit the Yardbirds and joined the band. His first playing featured on a debut LP released in 1966, John Mayall and the Blues Breakers featuring Eric Clapton. When Clapton left, it's Peter Green, later founded, of course, Fleetwood Mac, was in the band. Mick Taylor was in the band. As we go through, Jack Bruce actually was in the Blues Breakers for a little bit there. That's when he met Clapton. John McVie, of course. Ainsley Dunbar. Andy Fraser of Free. Coco Montoya, Rick Vito, Walter Trout, Buddy Whittington, Sonny Landreth, David Grissom, Rocky Althus. There's so many great musicians who have played with John Mayall and who went to the band. I had the great pleasure of seeing him at the Iridium in New York with Sonny Landreth was playing with him, and Sonny invited me to go. I know. Sonny Landreth calls you up to say, you want to go to a gig? Yes, we're friends, and I understand. Yes, I'm very fortunate to be friends with some of these people. So when Sonny asked me to go, it was just amazing to see him play. This was pre-COVID, so he was getting up there in age and still sounded great, and it was a great show. So for me, and I think a lot of us, he was the grandfather of British blues. And I think it's hard, it's impossible not to overlook his legacy. He, as he put it, was always felt an underground musician, as he was saying, which I thought was interesting, because a lot of the guys went on to bigger success. And he was still playing kind of the blues circuit in smaller clubs. So he had spoken about that. But the talent, even if you just talk about from, I'm not even going to dismiss Walter Trout and all these great players who came later, but in the 60s, he had Eric Clapton, Peter Green, and Mick Taylor in his band. Jack Bruce, John McVie, and Mick Fleetwood. I mean, just that alone changes the landscape of rock and rock guitar. So blues rock came out of these guys, right? Came out of largely John Mayall. And other guys, of course, the Animals and the Stones were playing blues stuff at the time. But it was, I was talking to Keith about it before I got online. John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, to me, it was sort of like being in Miles Davis's band, right? You always had the greatest players who went on to do these other things. Or if you're like a metal guy, the Ozzy Osbourne, right? You had all these great guitar players that went through there, and that was a coveted chair. So it's really amazing, and it's always sad, of course, when these people go, but legends. He was 90, so it's hard. You can say, of course, it's tragic, but at the same time, 90 years old is a great life to have had this kind of legacy. So just wanted to touch a bit on him. And I do want to play something that Eric Clapton, he was talking about this today. So let's see if we can get this to play. Hold on. Let me get this one-man show over here with this. All right. Flip over. Here we go.
I want to say a few words about my friend John, who I learned passed last night or sometime yesterday. I want to say thank you chiefly for rescuing me from oblivion and God knows what. When I was a young man, around the age of 18, 19, when I decided that I was going to quit music, he found me and took me into his home and asked me to join his band, and I stayed with him, and I learned all that I really have to draw on today in terms of technique and desire to play the kind of music I love to play. I did all my research in his home, in his record collection, for the Chicago blues that he was such an expert on, and I played with his band for a couple of years with Huey and John, and it was a fantastic experience, and he taught me that it was okay just to play the music you wanted to play without dressing it up or making anybody else like it, whether it mattered whether they like it or not, to listen to myself, to my inner motivations, and he was my mentor and as a surrogate father too. He taught me all I really know and gave me the courage and enthusiasm to express myself without fear or without limit, and all I gave him in return was how much fun it was to drink and womanize when he was already a family man, and I wish to make amends for that. I did that while he was alive, and I obviously since learned that is not the best way to carry on, but I shall miss him. But I hope to see him on the other side. So thank you, John. I love you, and I'll see you soon, but not yet, as they say in the Gladiator movie. God bless you. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, it's pretty heartfelt, obviously. I thought that was a pretty amazing thing that he'd come on and do that and say that. So, on to the lighter stuff. So I want to talk about what the music did for me. So the first time I heard the record, I was a little later to it, because in the 80s, in my formative guitar years, I wasn't really into it. I mean, I knew Clapton, I liked Cream a lot, but I never really dug more into the kind of shreddy stuff at that point, or Jeff Beck. But it wasn't until I guess I was a little older when I started getting into Cream, and I got my first Les Paul. And that kind of really opened the door as to what the sound was. The earlier stuff, as we know, the Blues Breakers record, and if we're talking about Cream, always played on a Gibson of some sort. And you can certainly play it on a Strat, as he does, but it just doesn't have the same kind of thing, the envelope of the notes. So there's a few little things I just want to talk about today that were fun, that, pass on about things that Clapton still does, of course, as a player, but things that really struck me. So let's just kind of play a little bit. So this goes, and it's kind of a tune called Bernard Jenkins, which is a big thing. Hopefully the mix is okay. Okay. I can go on. That's Walter from the other theme song playing all that piano there. So that's Walter killing it on that track. I remember calling up and hey man, can you do something that sounds like this? And about 15 minutes later, he sent me that. So pretty fun. All right, let's talk about some of the stuff that was going on there. First thing, I am playing a Les Paul. Pickup wise, people always ask, this is a historic makeover, 59 Les Paul. These are Ron Ellis LRPs. Yes, the LRPs. And I am playing into my 1972 Super Lead into a greenback cabinet in my aux, which is behind me. So, that's the sound, pretty close. He was using, obviously, a blues breaker. I don't have one, JTM 45. I haven't sold Marshall, which to me gets really kind of close. So a few little things that I want to just get into here. This. That move, so we're thinking G minor pentatonic, right? G7 really, but he's largely using G minor pentatonic, and we're always going to tweak our flat third. So this flat third is going to be the B flat. Normally we have a B in our G7 chord. So here, I know we've talked about this many times, but let's talk about it again. I'm going to tweak that note, bend that a little bit, and then I'm going to resolve it. So I'm not quite going. I mean, he does that sometimes, but not on this kind of thing. So. Now the trick on this, my friends, is to not release the bend. That sounds terrible because we want to get that quarter step. And our ear kind of pulls to the natural third, but we're not quite there, so it gives it that bluesy element that we really want. So if I'm a little bit, excuse me, flat on purpose, but the trick, two things. One, not to release the bend, the flat third bend. Sounds terrible because that's our harmony, right? So not release the bend, but also keep the bend going until either you stop the note or you get to the next note. Right? As opposed to going. It's really easy to sound sickly with that. Also, if you don't bend enough, so you got to work on the bend. Now, there's a little chapter in Clapton's autobiography. One of the kind of the rare parts in the book where he talks about his guitar playing, and he talks about how he worked on these little bends, if I remember right. It was really kind of nice and insightful to know that he spent hours and hours studying this stuff. Buddy Guy, Freddie King, Albert King, the classics, B.B. King. So this little bend is really indicative of the style. So this isn't just Clapton. This is just good guitar playing, but something I learned from him. So this move, Beck does that a lot too. But this, that slight bend, and as I release the note, I'm going to go up to the C, which is the fourth of the scale. Let's hear that. Just hear that phrase. Got the little intro. Hold on. Kind of play around with that. Works on the 4, right? Pretty cool. I know it seems it seems easy, but it ain't. I spent a lot of time getting. Now I can also bend it a bit more. That's a bit more Jeff Beck-ish in a way. So, but let's hear. I'm gonna bend more. Hear that sounds. Sorry, back in the 1. So the problem you get of it a little bit is if you're bending that to the natural third, which would be B, and then you're on your 4 chord, yeah, it's going to be a bit weird. So I would recommend just working on it, that same lick over the 1, 4, and the 5 chord, and it works really great. So we can also bring that down an octave, right? So what I'll do, I'm sorry guys, I'll put the link below in the YouTube freebies. I'll give you this track. It's already in a few other videos. It's in my Bernard Jenkins breakdown video, but I'll give it to you when I get offline. You can come back and it'll be in the YouTube freebies for this, okay? All right, so now we can drop it down the octave, right? So I'm gonna hit that flat 3 to the 4. Let's get that sound, so. Sorry, where am I? How about up the octave? Okay, so that move, you want to find that, so it's a flat third tweak to the 4th. So worked really hard at that. I thought it would be easier than it was, and like I said, it is not easy. And if you guys have any questions coming up, we'll get to that. I just wanted to show you that one simple quotation-y simple thing. So the other tweak this is across the board blues, but things I learned from him, and I realize everybody else is doing it, but I learned it from him, is also the flat 7 tweak. So if I'm going to play a G7 chord, my flat 7 is going to be F. So we're going to play the F, and I'm going to bend it a little bit. I don't have to bend it all the way to the G. There's that, but so by tweaking the note a little bit, it's more about the motion of the note alluding to the pitch that you're going to, or alluding to the pitch that you're not actually ever playing. What do I mean by that, not ever playing? Did I really get to the G? No. I'm somewhere shy of the G, but my ear is going wah, like I'm kind of hearing that, but not quite sound. I'm hearing it mentally, you know what I'm getting at. It's implied, so you don't have to do it. And not hitting it all the way to the G is actually a little cooler sometimes because it gives you that bluesy sort of flavor. So if I'm just going to work on a scale, check this out. And go up. So each time as I went through the scale, I tweaked my flat 3rd and my flat 7. So let me just do some of those flat 7 tweaks, which for me is impossible not to play with them. I mean, you know, it's possible, but I don't want to. All right, so flat 7 tweak. Even a little bit. So I'm just taking a pentatonic scale, and yeah, I'm phrasing and all that, yes, but the flat 3 tweak and the flat 7 tweak. Once I started rolling with that, I was like, holy crap, that made a big difference. So the solos that did it for me, anything off of the Blues Breakers record was huge. Now if I started getting into Peter Green, he's doing this. Did these guys invent this? Of course not. This is all, if you watch the video that Matt Schofield and I did on the 10 blues guitar players that mattered most, this is all from he and I's perspective. It's all B.B. King, because B.B. King was sort of, you could argue there's T-Bone Walker before him. He was like the first electric lead blues guitar player who played for extended periods of time. We could argue this. Matt is a total historian on blues, so if he said that's the case, I trust him. His blues knowledge is amazingly strong. So watch that video that we did together. So, Clapton got these from people. I got them from him, and then he started putting a bit more of the rock and roll tone to it, which we'll talk to in a second. So the third tweak in the pentatonic scale is you're going to tweak we can tweak, let's cut the chase. You can tweak every note except for the root. So what do I mean? So I'm going to bend that flat third, right? The reason why I don't really tweak the root, where are we going to go? We're not alluding to anything except the whole step. So that's a tricky one to try to tweak. Here's Mr. Softy again, if you can hear him. Here's my flat 7. Now, also the D, that's a tricky one to tweak. So let me rephrase. Let me start over. Flat 3, flat 7, the 4. Sorry, the 5. Excuse me, we're not going to tweak the 5. I said 4, the 5. We're going to tweak the 4. So check this out. We're going to tweak the C, because we're alluding to either the blue note or the whole step in the scale. So I'm tweaking the 4, flat 3, not the root, flat 7. Yeah, that's the shizzle right there. I learned that from Bernard Jenkins, and I learned it from Lonely Years, these 2 tracks. And I learned it from going through the Beano stuff. I innately knew some of it from playing rock, and Page does this all the time, but I got it from him. And then, I got heavy into Billy Gibbons, who was clearly influenced by Peter Green and Eric Clapton. Worked on it with Billy a lot. So it's this 4, flat 3, don't tweak the root, flat 7 tweak. So that's that sound. If I don't tweak it, watch. I changed the phrase, but you get the idea. Let me take a lick. So I didn't change the rhythm or anything, I just tweaked, and one is okay, and the other one is way, 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 way better. So I think this is really, if I'm going to give you a piece of advice of things to work on, and that's kind of what I do here, is that thinking about ways that you can simply take a lot of the things that you already know and work on them. So that's sort of been like the teaching philosophy. I know you guys are repeat here, and a little sales pitch. I got my British Blues Rock Masters 75% off. Talk about this and more. I talk about Clapton in depth, and David Gilmour and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page in depth. So check out the course. I think it's pretty good. 75% off, so it's dirt cheap. So the idea, I think, is we want to figure out guitar solos, really, really important. And let's talk about that for a second. So the Bernard Jenkins, particularly off of the Blues Breakers record, the reissue was put out prior to the Blues Breakers record. Watch, Keith has got a whole great history on the Beano stuff. And then just learn a verse. Like learn one or learn a few lines. Just go really, really slow. But what it started me off on was thinking, okay, I'm going to tweak my flat 3, I'm going to tweak my flat 7. I need to start to work on those and find them in G. It's all the same fingering except for the G and the B string. I haven't played my Les Paul in a while, and a Les Paul through a Marshall. Is there anything better? Well, maybe a Strat through a Marshall, but when you're playing a Les Paul through a Marshall, is there anything better? No, not at that moment. All right, so, and now we want to think about, you can really work those bends. Once again, the trick on all these is to either stop the bend, right? And I'm stopping it by just putting my pick down on the string. Or, keeping the bend going. Once again, if I don't keep the bend going, right? And that requires that you think about, well, how long do I want to hold this note? What's my next note? So if I want to go, I don't want to go, right? I have to keep that bend working. So this is where the practice comes in. Physically, you got to build up the hand strength to go. Oops. Right? So really, now all that was pretty much just a pentatonic scale, but I'm really trying to work the bends. Super, super important. And like I said, is this Eric Clapton? Sure. And it's a lot of other people. So one little quick other thing I want to give you that I love that Clapton does, and he still does it to this day. He does all this to this day, just not usually playing a Les Paul. He does this. He'll bounce between the natural 7. So he'll play an F sharp on this. Now he can do that on the 5 chord. D7 would have an F sharp. But he plays that natural 7 or the major 7. Let's hear how it's going to sound. Right? Right? So really cool. He does it in Little Girl. Little Girl on the Blues Breakers record. And it's a cliche of his. He does it in Cream, especially the live stuff. You hear it all over the place when he's playing a blues. Sitting on top of the world, that kind of stuff. Also, vibrato. Huge. Now, Clapton, when he's doing a single unbent note. He does that kind of freehand vibrato where you kind of floats. It's tricky. You got to work on it. I find it actually really much easier to do standing up, and it's part of the sound. You can get that same kind of sound without it, but there's something about this thing, as opposed to, with the thumb over the top with the more support, that open back of the hand, not supporting over the top like a normal band. It's just using their whole forearm. Just watch them play live and it's right there, Okay, let's see if we've got any questions. Happy to talk about stuff. Oh, tone-wise, I do have a Vemram Booty G on just to kind of bump it up. This is the amp by itself. I'm mostly using the bass side of the amplifier. Marshalls have a bright input or normal, and then it's brilliant and then normal. I'm cranking up the normal channel. If you look at the old videos of Clapton playing, or old pictures and some videos, he's always plugged into the upper right-hand corner, like the bassier channel. My Marshall is already internally jumped. The reason for this is it makes it easier on gigs. You don't forget that cable. And according to my amp tech, and I know, what's his name? Dave Friedman does this well. It actually can mix the amp quieter in terms of any kind of ground loop that sometimes you may get by mixing the two channels, which can happen. So, this is a super lead. It's kind of a toned down super lead. So it's I can get that Van Halen-y thing, but I usually go more for the Billy Gibbons, Clapton thing. So there's something about that when you play it with the Les Paul, and then we go to that neck pickup. Now that can be a bit woofy. So there's always that struggle, and when I was on the live thing with David Grissom, the struggle between getting the neck right and the bridge to be quite right. So if I put on a boost with a little bit of the bass roll off, so suddenly I rolled a little bit of the low end off. That. Gets a little bit more going on. And of course the woman tone is you just dial back the treble. There's that thing's kind of breaking apart. The bridge. All right. So it's my party trick of kind of copying Eric Clapton. All right, the questions. Let's see what we got through. So first of all, thanks, BB, as always, for being here. I see a lot of the same, always the people, same guys. S.E. Nesbitt, David Cromwell, Jason Carter, Phil Jones, Kurt Schaffenberg, Quincy. Well, we got everybody else is here, of course. Okay. Kevin Casma. Hey, Angus is here. What's up? What's up, Angus? Is Keith here? Victor Beebe, what's going on? Jason Lachlan. Sorry, man. Looked at Jason on. We tried to work that out, but like I said, it was just such a nightmare a few weeks ago. Having David Grissom on it was really, really. I just didn't want to go through that until I can finally figure that out. And seeing, like I said, Keith's live feed yesterday with Ariel Posen, it gets to be very, very stressful. Resonant peaks are fun. Hey, Lyle, is that what that is? That sound? All that great info on top? That's a resonant peak. All right. So just for fun, you can get, S.E. Nesbitt, is that natural compression from the amp? I know you're not usually a fan of compression pedals. Yeah, that's the amp, and I put a little bit of boost on the front. The boost is hitting a little bit. A little bit of gain, just because I could dial back the gain. I just was taking a little bit, shaving off some of the low end. So if I go to the neck pickup, it just kind of does that. Let me do that in the amp, though. I can do that here, but then I kind of lose some of that. Right, so that Clapton sound to me is a bit more that bass drum. You know what I mean? So that is part of the amp, part of the bass to your channel. Oh, and thanks, Lila. It's plus filtering oddities in the amp. But it's interesting. It's the low frequency. I mean, I can get the more Van Halen-y thing, and then it loses the Clapton-y thing. So it's those lows, the bass channel, that kind of pushes that sound. So it gets a bit tricky. And back in that period, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I didn't hear him play the neck pickup that much when he was playing the JTM 45. And usually the reason for that is they're very bass-heavy amplifiers and get pretty flubby, especially on the neck pickup of a Les Paul. People do talk about, did he use a Rangemaster? I don't think so. I have a great one here that my friend at Static, cat hair on here, sorry. Static Effectors made, really, really cool. I just don't find that they're, that he used it. I think the general consensus, if you've ever played through JTM 45 with greenbacks at the period, at volume with a Les Paul, he didn't need an overdrive pedal. There were some pictures of that, so I'm pretty skeptical about him using one, having one. When he started playing with Cream, he was using Plexis 100-watt, different circuit, tighter low end, and he would go to the neck pickup a bit more back then. So, all right. Did you spend, this is from Gary Mosley, did you spend much time listening to the 24 Nights or From the Cradle era Clapton? For me, his best is post-60 stuff. I love the 24 Nights, yeah, and they just put out another reissue that, I think, really expanded. He plays great on that. No, is the answer. The From the Cradle, I do like his playing a lot. What some of those records suffer from, for me, is it's hard production-wise of that time. That the piano and some of the production is very of that era, and I sometimes have a little hard time hearing past it. Same with some of like the later Floyd records, and David Gilmour's talked about it, So the live records I really love. I really, really like that Robert Johnson record he did, and especially when they played with the band on that. That period was really great. But yeah, From the Cradle is all really, really obviously amazing stuff. But for me, it's Cream and Mayall, and Blind Faith, of course, too. But that's when things started changing. Now, that's not to say I don't like later Clapton. I really do. And if my brother's online, that's where I kind of heard about all that stuff. I don't remember him being really into Cream. That was more my thing, and he was definitely into like Slow Hand record, and that's not always my favorite. There's got some songs in there that I really don't love, but there's some stuff that I really do love, obviously. It's like any artist. I don't love everything he did, but his playing has had an immense effect on my life and lots of other people. As I said, along with the Mayall guys. So Peter Green's the other guy that I got really, really into. Got into much later. It was maybe in the States he just isn't as popular, so I just had to kind of dig into it for a little bit. And then I was like, who's this guy? I think I heard Oh Well and Green Man Alicia, which I knew from Priest, and I was like, wait a minute, it's a Fleetwood Mac tune. Then I was off and running with Peter Green. And Mick Taylor plays great on the Mayall records as well. Yeah, Rob F., I agree. Mayall, Cream, Blind Faith are my favorite Clapton. A lot of people feel that way. I like the later stuff for sure. How about the Layla record? I do like the Layla record a lot. Yeah, I like that record a lot. I think I heard it a lot growing up, and it's not my favorite, but of course Layla is just ridiculous, and yeah, Nobody Knows When You're Down, and all those tunes. But I don't find myself going back to that record. I find myself always going back to all of the Blues Breakers records, and I find myself listening to the Cream stuff. the Cream stuff is interesting. When Clapton talked about it, why he left the band, that he got bored, and it was just there was the infighting, but he said he got bored musically. And if you listen to a lot of it, and they put out the farewell tour, and they released tons of concerts that were bootlegs, and there's some amazing stuff, but there's some of those jams that they kind of went off the rails. There's a crossroads where Ginger keeps on turning the beat around, and the only guy really holding it together would be Clapton. Excuse me. So from a musician point of view, if my drummer started doing that, I would go absolutely insane, because you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So if you know, there's a version of Crossroads on one of those records that I was like, what's going on here? And I played it for some of my friends, and everybody's like, what? So there's a lot of I could see what he was talking about. Yeah, the Key to the Highway cut on that record is great. So, and also think about the tone on the Beano record, that set the benchmark that I'm still consider it one of the greatest guitar tones. It started everything. It's a Les Paul to a Marshall, and it started the whole revolution. That's what Hendrix wanted. That's what, Jeff Beck sent them over to Billy Gibbons in the late 60s, because that was the sound. And guys, oh man, ZZ Top live. Where's that concert? Let me see if I can find a few guys on YouTube. I've been listening to this. This is live in 72. Hold on. It's a live 73. I'm just getting the link because it is so good. Is this it? 71. Hold on. It's going to play. Don't play. All right. I'm going to put it in the chat. This, and you hear Clapton in here. There's no way. And Billy says that, of course. So when you get off this call, check that stuff out. Billy is just ridiculous in this stuff. In the tone, and it's just clearly a Marshall and a Les Paul. All right, so sorry, I don't have any more questions. I could talk about Clapton forever. Oh, when a young Bruce Springsteen was hiring his first drummer, he wrote, "No Ginger Bakers." Yeah. Not my favorite when he went off sometimes. And that's what Clapton had said too. And you can hear how he and Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker were kind of fighting for. There's some points in those live records where I'm like, what's going on here? And the only guy really holding it together is Clapton. So I could see being in that band, dealing with those guys fighting all the time, and you just being like, okay, I'm out. Like I'm out. I mean, that's what he said. So I could understand it. Key to the Highway is the first song you taught me from there, Jeff. Oh, great. That's Vili. Thanks, man. Awesome. Jason Laughlin. Yeah, the 70s records. 461 Ocean Boulevard is a great record. Killer band. Absolutely. Let It Rain, and I'm just bad with all the titles. I know all the tunes. I could sing a bunch. Great tunes. Great tunes. Just not as a playing wise, I think he's always been great, and anybody who says otherwise, whatever. Eric can be a divisive character, and I think a lot of people start going down that road. And I'm talking about not the man, I'm talking about the guitar player. So all right, let's see if we got anything going on here too. Eric's first solo record, After Midnight Blues Power. Yeah, all that stuff's great. Coming back a little bit. Any more questions, guys? Guitar Grandpa, a little back there. The natural seventh lick in Little Girl also has an interesting rhythmic structure. 16th tones, right? Yeah. So I think it's just the way he's playing back and forth on it that makes it sound so cool. So how would you practice this? It's kind of, taking one move at a time. So the move that I would just say is, just to kind of recap what we were talking about, the flat 3 tweak is going to be the first one. What am I going to get dinged for my play along? Flat 3. Okay, now our flat 7, which is the F. There's the F. And a flat 3. And the 4. So flat 3 tweak, 4 tweak to kind of the flat 5 or the 5, the flat 7 tweak, eluding, and that's it. And the tricks, or the real way to make it work, is don't stop the bend, and or if you're going to release the bend, you're going to stop the bend, physically stop it. Don't stop the bend. The bend always has to stay in motion until you get to your next note or until you decide to stop the note. So that requires the practice of just working on the timing with it. Right? So that's a big part of it. Yeah, and like I said, I talk about this in my course, plus many other stuff. Oh, Stu Obi about the course. Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Riding with the King is one of my all-time favorite records. Great record, yeah. There's lots of jealousy manifesting in some people's thoughts on Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton or not. Is Clapton God? Look, at the time, he was the man. Absolutely. Clapton, I mean, didn't Hendrix say he wanted to come over and play with Eric Clapton? So at the time, yeah. Was he like 18? Come on. That good? Nobody played like that before him. There's guys who kind of lean towards it with the people he got it from, but nobody. Listen to that period. It's the next thing. It took the blues, mixed it with English sensibility, technology. We had a Marshall amp. That was the sound. It distorted. It's kind of like a basement, but they had a little different enough. Lyle, chime in. Changed it enough. Then he just did his thing, and then that was it. And as he said in that quote in the beginning, like John Mayall, gave him the freedom and the confidence and the encouragement to do that. Okay. Jason was saying, yes, of course. Yes, this is a good point. And Clapton's just more than his guitar playing. Ocean Boulevard has great tunes, singing, and a vibe. Always listen as a musician, not a guitarist. Yeah. Eric Clapton is one of my favorite singers. And I think he's one of the best guys who sings, white guys singing a blues, which is a tough thing, I buy what he's singing. You know what I mean? Sometimes when guys overdo it, I love the way Clapton thinks. I think he's an amazing singer. Just try singing those tunes. So I'm thinking about that too. Albert, no. I'm thinking, brain fart. B.B. King, he's as good a singer as he was a guitar player. Clapton's as good a singer as he is a guitar player. Jeff, what do you think of J.J. Cale's music? Obviously had a huge effect on Clapton's career with Cocaine, After Midnight. I like his records. I do. I kind of like other people's versions of his records, but I do like his records a lot. There's the main one, I forget. I'm bad with the with the titles of those records. They kind of just fall into my iTunes, and they start playing, and I'm like, oh yeah, this record, and I listen to it. So I do like J.J. Cale. I'm not as knowledgeable of him individually as opposed to the people, Clapton, who covered his tunes. You can only have one overdrive pedal. Which one? Oof. If we're going on a budget, not even a budget, I would say, okay, there's two, and I've got them here. Well, one's on my board is the Shanks Vemram ODS, which it's pricey, and cards at the table. I work with Vemram, so sponsored link or whatever. It's a great pedal. It's a little pricey. So the second one, and I'm not just saying it because it's Keith's and 5-Watt World, the bus pedal or the Barber Direct Drive. Both, I don't have them plugged in, but there's videos of me playing them and Keith's playing them. The Direct Drive is on my pedal board right now, which I'll show you guys in a minute if you want to see. So Keith did the thing where Keith and David did a thing of one side's the Dumble side and the other side's a JTM 45. The Direct Drive has like a JTM 45 plexi-ish sort of thing, and then a more high gain Marshall. I have that on my board because I like the option of those few things, but this is great if you want the Dumble thing, and it does it really, really well. So of all the Dumble pedals I have, this is one of them, but all of them, I would highly recommend this one. So David Barber's Direct Drive or the Bus, these two. So shout out to Keith for, like, if I could go for at the moment, the Shanks ODS, which is expensive, and a less expensive option, probably about half the price almost, is the Barber Direct Drive or the Bus. All right. Does your Blues Mock Masters course cover Clapton's later strat? Nope, it's all cream. On the Blues Rock Masters only covers the cream era stuff, and I talk about sort of like how he plays in Politician and all those things. So it's a little bit later. I talk about the Beano stuff. So it's not the later strat stuff, just the earlier stuff. Eric Strofe sound like Ray Charles. Yeah. Skinner playing Call Me the Breeze. Yeah, I love Skinner. Like Robert Cray and SRV's vocal skills too. Clapton's at another level. I like Steve Ray's singing, but Clapton, that guy's, he's a great singer. Such control too. Like, if you know anything about singing, know a little bit, he's really good. Are you transposing to A? At B? I'm not sure what you mean. Okay. Just general questions people always ask. I'm using 10s on the Les Paul. I've gone over to about 9.5s or 9s on my Strats because I've been having a little bit of hand issues that have been doing okay, and certainly changing the strings to a lighter gauge has helped. So what are you gonna do? I'm confused about some of those questions. Anyway, just using 10s. I just find it easier to bend that way. I don't know what gauge he was using back then. I don't think it matters too much. It's just the way you play. And we don't need the strings to push the amp as much as they used to back in the old days, All right, another question. Which are your favorite guitars, has your favorite neck shape, and what is your preferred neck shape? It's a good question. This is historic makeover, and it has a copy of Joe Bonamassa' Skinner burst neck, I believe. I love the new Murphy Lab Gibson 59 neck. Really like that neck a lot. I think it feels really good. Some of the reissues that they made years ago were really, really big, and I can't play a really, really big neck, especially standing up. I like a medium size, medium C size. Now, one of my Strats that I got, it's got a huge neck on it. I like it on that guitar, so I'm gonna leave. The guitar sounds amazing, but it's kind of a big neck. My DGT, I love that neck, 840, 850, something like that. So not too thin, but reasonable. Too fat, I find I can't rip on, because my hand gets kind of closed up. And too thin, like I have a Jakey Lee Charvel. I can't play it because it actually causes my hand to hurt quite a bit because it's too thin. So I guess I'm doing something. So like a medium neck, right down the middle there, What's a good daily practice routine what's a good practice for daily guitar playing? Wow. I got a bunch of videos on that for sure. But I would just kind of break it up. Just here's the best, as opposed to doing like an actual routine and going through something like that, because I have a number of videos on that, is to plan ahead what you want to practice. That's important. So, okay, today I'm going to work on what Jeff talked about with blah, 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 bending the thirds, and that's what I'm going to work on today. If you walk into a practice idea, that's really important, as opposed to just picking up a guitar and I'm like, oh, I'm going to turn on YouTube or I'm going to open this or that. If you have a plan, that saves a lot of time. Also practice in small increments. Like, if you got a half hour to practice, great. If you got an hour to practice, just switch, work on technique for 15 minutes or something, or take breaks if you're doing anything that's really kind of technically demanding. The 5-hour practice session of cramming sometimes doesn't really do much for you. I love playing guitar for that long. But I think the best advice I could have, as to some of my other videos too, is to go in with a plan. Okay. All right. I love my Les Pauls, but I bought a Fender AV2 73 Stratocaster with 7 1/4 fret. Oh, yeah, okay. Fenders, I love 7 1/4 myself. I've gotten used to, like I said, the old Strat. I've got 2 old Strats, and I got used to 7 1/4. And so for Stratocasters, I really like it a lot. This feels right, and I think it sounds different. I'm not alone in my thoughts on that. A 7 1/4 sounds different than a 12-inch radius. Some people say it's more wood, or it's this I would say maybe more it's the angle of the strings over the pickups. I don't know. It's that whole tone wood thing. But I hear a bit of a difference, Oh, okay. BB is saying the conversation with Warren Haynes gets released on Friday on that pedal show. Awesome. I'm going to definitely check that out. That's going to be a lot of fun. Okay. Is switching from major and minor mid solo something he does as well? Yeah. I didn't get too deep into that because that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, so it's a minor. Right? So yeah, he would, I did on a D. He didn't really do that, but yeah, he'd switch between G major and G minor pentatonic. I think he was more hearing it as he was outlining the chord changes a bit. I'm sorry, I gotta make sure I get everything. This tune's in G. Don't forget, when we get off here, I'll upload this and put a link to it so you can get the background track. It's in one of my free things too, by the way. And it's in one of my, all right, I'll just upload it. Sorry. Okay, any news on new courses being worked on? Yeah, I got a few working on. Another sort of essential blues licks course. People like the blues licks course. I'm working on a rhythm guitar course because some of the guys, Guitar Grandpa, Randy had recommended that. So I'm halfway through recording a blues rhythm guitar essentials course that's going to be multi-level over the next few months. Playing on a minor blues course, and a few other things lined up. So that's working out. They probably won't come out until September. Maybe the licks course might come out in August. Just to be honest, it's a very slow month, August. So sometimes to release courses. There's it's when you like put out a new movie or a book or something or a record. there's a certain amount of momentum that comes out with something that's new. And a lot of people are on vacation in August, as we see by sometimes the new YouTube numbers that a lot of my friends are talking about are kind of down. So if you put out a course in the middle of August, you're sometimes not maximizing your work for income. It's usually a bad idea. So we'll see what happens, but definitely a bunch of stuff in September for sure. September, October, November, a bunch of things coming up. Bunch of questions. Okay, Jim Solomon. Any genre of music, blues, rock, fusion, modern country, includes distorted, sustaining, fat, warm guitar could be traced way back to that Beano record. I'm with you, man. I think so too. That sort of modern via 1966 guitar tone. Yeah, that's it. To me, it's a Marshall. Like whether it's, yes, I'm playing two rocks, but my favorite two rock is a bit more Marshall-y leaning. Is the Bloomfield Drive. There's a little bit of a Marshall-esque element, and even my friends over at two rock are like, yeah, that's kind of our most rocky amp. So, here we go. Next questions. Okay. Is that the new Marshall? Which model? No, this is the old model, the 72 Super Lead that I've had for decades. And I got it for like $800, So lucky. I had to put a lot of work into it. It was kind of heavily molested. No drill holes, but it had been modified and then it's back to spec. So, yeah, it's a great amp. I never use it on gigs. It's just too loud and too big. But I know the pedal show did about the thing on a super lead and a super bass. Yeah, they have some of the greatest clean sounds ever. I love the sound of a Marshall on a clean tone. That's just physically too big, to bring around. And they're heavy. And also that amp, like when you lift it up, it just tilts to one side because you got all the transformers, got all the stuffing up one end. You pick it up and it tilts. So I'm out. I'm bringing it around with me. Plus, you're running it so low. You know what I mean? So that's a super lead. And in Europe, Marshall was going to be kind enough to get me an amp for the tour. That's not going to happen, unfortunately, because they can't get me one in time. So my friend Hermano is letting me borrow a Suraplexi, so no problem there. Any Bitter End gigs on the horizon? Not until I get back from Europe. So not until like October. Just because there's just so much stuff going on, and then I gotta hit the road, and I'm gonna be out of town for close to a month. So no. When's the blues tapping course out? That's from Jason Chadwick. That's funny, Jason. Jason Chadwick, Premier Guitar. What's going on, Jason? How you been, man? I haven't heard from you in ages. Thought I'd give you a hard time back. I like to learn some Billy Gibbons. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of Billy. I got to play in a style of Billy Gibbons course over at TrueFire. Got a few videos on that. There's lots of stuff online. Victor Beebe, I put money down on a Germino. Any suggestions? Yeah, I love Greg's amps. If I'm going to get a Marshall clone, I'm gonna get a Germino. Greg, I know Greg. They are amazing. The Lead 55 Lovo, LV, low voltage. That is, I've played it. There's a video of me playing that amp and my divided by 13. Man, it's a great amp. And one thing that he does the old circuits, like a plexi circuit. So the plexi circuits were not as bright as the plexi that they put out now from Marshall. Like the Marshall voicing is now a bit more like a metal panel. Now this is a metal panel, but I have it voiced more like an original plexi, so it's not quite as aggressive and bright, which is the sound I don't really love from Marshalls. Now it's great if you're playing, that era stuff, which I love that music, like, talk about Judas Priest or something like that was using the 800s and plexis, and Van Halen is very, it was a plexi, he was more leaning towards the bright channel. So I like 1986s a little bit more. Those are sort of more lower, have more, less aggressive. That's what I'm trying to get at. I like the less aggressive one. But, so when you get a Germino, I would either recommend his JTM 45 or the Lovo. There is a master volume on it, which is very good, but part of the sound of those amplifiers is turning up your power tubes. So the thing I would recommend to you, Victor, if you're going this route, is to get a power station as well, because then you can run your amp on at where you want it, and then you can adjust the volume accordingly. And it's not an attenuator, it's a reamping situation. And then you can put reverb in and do all these things. So that's the coolest invention. I'm going to the aux, but the aux to me is a terrible attenuator. You turn it down, everything sounds terrible. It's great as an amp speaker simulator. To me, they're two different products. It's not inexpensive, the Fryette Power Station, but if you really want to use that Dramino in a way where you get in some of these sort of things at a reasonable volume, the Power Station is the way to do it. Or through pedals. Pedals can sound good, but they're never going to sound as good as that power amp distortion. All sorts of caveats to all these things. Depends how loud you want to do. Also, if you're running your Dramino really loud on 10 all the time, you're going to blow through some of those tubes. But I can highly recommend Greg's amps. Spectacular. And if Lyle's still here from Psionic Audio, he said the same thing. Greg's amps are amazing. And he's a great dude. Do you not fancy yourself getting something GTM 45 flavored? The power amp, yeah. That's this divided by 13 is the same tube complement as the JTM 45. The reason why a guy who loves JTM 45s but doesn't have a JTM 45 is to get the JTM 45 to get that sound, it has to be really, really, really loud. And I'm just not in a situation where I can play that loud. Most people aren't anymore. Like, a lot of people using modelers, or you go into a gig with an amp and they're like, oh, do you have a direct out? Like, that's the world today. So if you're walking in with a JTM 45, which is 35 watts, it's loud. I mean, go to that pedal show, and they did the comparison between the Super Elite or the 1987X, which is a 50 watt plexi, and the JTM 45, and they're still hitting over 100 dB on each one. So that's like airplane taking off stuff. That is really loud. So this is 35 watts allegedly, and it was as loud as the 50 watt Dramino. It's crazy. So the JTM 45, unless you are running something like a power station, you're not going to get that power amp distortion. Master volumes on those can work really well. I have a master volume on this, but it sounds better when I play it through the power station. Sounds good, but still has to be a certain volume. Now we're not even talking about speakers yet, right? And the speakers doing their thing and playing through speakers at volume. It's a whole, yeah. All right, Andrew Lowe, while we're here studying British guitarists, any chance of something on Kossoff? Your courses have really helped me enormously. Thanks for that. Well, first of all, thank you so much. You're really, really welcome. I appreciate it. And thank you for letting me know. I love free, but I'm not a Kossoff specialist. Like, it would require me going back and learning his stuff and analyzing his playing. So that's a no. But I love free. So, yeah. How's that? Okay, some great questions coming up. Any thoughts on doing a stream of Mike Bloomfield style techniques, Super Session and Era before? No. The reason why is I've had this conversation with Robin Ford at his house. He's like, oh, come on, Mike Bloomfield. And I'm like, no, Eric Clapton. He loved Clapton too, but he's like, no, but Bloomfield. I think it's who you were into first. And so I like Bloomfield's a lot, playing a lot, especially Super Sessions. And there's a few live things they did with Nikki, the Blues on the West Side, Nikki Gervantes, I think. Sorry if I'm not getting that name right. Some great playing on that. But I would have to go back and really dig into it. And I don't kind of have the time to analyze. The guys we talk about are the guys who I love. And so for me to go back and learn somebody, you know what I mean? It takes a lot of work. If you guys have checked out my 10 guitar changing moments, you can get to hear me do my Alan Halsworth, which is kind of fun. Check that out. BV, yeah, it was super loud. Yeah, I mean, a 50 watt plexi. So the difference between a 50 watt and a 100 watt is usually give or take 3 dB, but you get more clean headroom and low end. But I mean, it is ungodly loud. And like this thing, if this weren't in the aux and I were playing it, I couldn't be in the same room with it, and my neighbors would be calling the police, and it would hear it down the block. And the reason for this, I think we all know, but they had to fill arenas with it. They didn't have the same kind of PAs that we have now, and sound systems. So they'd have a mic on Clapton's amp or Hendrix amp, but my understanding is what you were largely hearing was what was coming from the stage. So stories of Ginger Baker going back to the hotel room, just his ears screaming because he was between Jack Bruce and Eric Clapton playing, 3 stacks of Marshalls. Pretty funny. Angus, Kossoff had a great tone. He definitely did, for sure. Anytime you want to join the British Blues Posse, just holler. BPP. Where's that? Where's the British Blues Posse? I think I'm kind of hopefully an honorary member. Clapton from his Mayall days through Cream is everything I love about guitar. I'm with you, Lamar Brewster. I'm with you. Like every time I hear it, I just love it. The improv, the feeling, it was so fresh sounding because it was. And then we're talking about the Mayall stuff, but Fresh Cream, playing on that, Spoonful on that was a real life-changing moment. I said that in that video. That record, I had heard, Sunshine and all these things like that, but they didn't. Crossroads, and I thought it was cool. But then when I finally got Fresh Cream, I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. Sleepy Time, still one of my favorite guitar tones ever, along with Spoonful. And when we were on the road, Rob and I thought about maybe covering Sleepy Time. We just thought it would be kind of fun, but we decided against. He decided against it, but we had it for a minute. Maybe we were going to do it, and we didn't do it. Okay. Other quick thing. It's not so quick. If you go through and you watch, and I heard Bonamassa talk about this. If you go through, the live Cream, the farewell concert, the concert movie, the famous video of Clapton in front of the amps of the interviewer, and he's playing the Fool guitar. Look how lightly he picks. He picked really lightly, and part of that was it was so freaking loud. And how that video, he's sitting there in front of the amps, there's that wall of Marshalls, 100-watt Marshalls. It must have been so loud when they were recording that. But the guitar tone on that is insane. But just watch his pick hand. And he's not hitting really hard. I think I pick harder than he does on this stuff. But yeah, But I pick softer. I suppose sometimes Stevie would hit really hard. And I think when you hit harder on a Strat, it has a very different envelope to the notes. But so I'm playing pretty lightly, and also the volume is a huge thing. Hey, big fan of yours. This is from Tim Coffey. Big fan of your 30 smoking blues rock licks for guitar. Not a Clapton question, but do you have any favorite Carlos Santana lick or riff? I think the high point for me for Santana would have been Woodstock. He was just a monster at Woodstock. Yeah, I'm not a big Santana fan, and people are like, what? I'm like, this is not my thing. Though he's great, obviously, of course. But I would say Woodstock, to just have come out apparently on acid and have kind of brought that fire, was pretty intense. Pretty great stuff. What's your favorite speaker and why is it a greenback? That's from Angus. My favorite speaker with Marshalls are greenbacks. Yeah, for sure. It's part of the sound in my mind. G12Hs as well. So for the Marshall thing, the greenbacks are definitely the way to go in my mind, or the G12H, which is the 30-watt ones. I don't like the later ones. This has got 2 cream backs in it, so they emulate the greenbacks, and it can handle 100 watts. So it's about the power handling you got to be careful with. And also, like with the 2 rocks, I'm using more of the 65s, classic, 60. What do they call those? Vintage 65, whatever, the one I'm talking about, the famous one, the one that Robin uses in his Dumbles and all that. Jeff, would your blues rock master's course be helpful for beginner playing for a year? I've gone through your blues and solo rhythm courses. It's too advanced. It's a little too advanced for you right now, for sure. I don't have a lot of beginner courses. I do have a triad course on my jam guitar lessons. I have a few more beginner stuff over at TrueFire from a number of years ago, and my teaching stuff, jam guitar lessons, where everything's coming out now, I don't have anything that's. You know what would be kind of fun for you is the foundational blues licks. I chose that to make them a little easier. I don't know where you're at, but I would say this one's a little tough for sure. Yeah, but thank you for asking. Yeah. This is Tracy Farmer. What's up, man? The funny thing is, I didn't have tinnitus until I met you. No, you didn't know you had tinnitus until you met me. What's that ringing in my ear? Oh, yeah, it's called tinnitus. Lamar Brewster, my parents saw Cream in 67, Hendrix in 68, and followed up with Woodstock. Good time to be alive. Yeah, it was a great time in music, for sure. Absolutely. All right. Carlos was peaking on mescaline at Woodstock. Yeah, that was the story, that he was totally out of his mind at that point. But man, totally brought it. All right, so there's my short, quick take on Eric Clapton. And once again, the bigger thing, not the bigger thing, let's just think about John Mayall. He passed away, 90 years old. I didn't want people to think people get on this, they get mad, oh, you're jumping on the bandwagon. I was going to talk about Mayall today anyway, and the fact that this happened. I think he deserves. I think people don't know how important his, breeding ground for other musicians were and what he brought. And clearly a very generous person, to let all these people shine. And that's what I'd heard when people were talking about it in the interviews, that he was very generous. Mick Taylor was saying, yeah, he used to allow me to make mistakes. He encouraged me to go do my thing. And so it's really clear. And he recommended Mick Taylor to Mick Jagger for the Stones. So clearly he was pretty cool too, that, you should get Mick Taylor to join your band because he'll be bigger in the Stones than he will. So, really, I think I've heard, pretty great guy. So I would just really go back and check out, especially for me, the classic records. And there's one, if you can hunt this down, well, there's a few. Let me just get a few titles. Certainly the Beano record, for sure. Any of the traditional John Mayall Blues Breakers records, especially from the 60s. So I'm sometimes bad with the titles of the records. I know. I should know. Hold on. All right. Let me see what I got in my library. Crusade. That's the one. Supernatural. And John Mayall Blues Breakers featuring Eric Clapton. Now, there's a few things that are really, really great you should check out too. I found it, you got to go on Apple Music, go on YouTube. John Mayall with Eric Clapton playing Telephone Blues and Stormy Monday. And that's Clapton and their live recordings, and they're little not great sounding, but they're awesome. The playing in that is awesome. And then they released another record. Hold on, guys. There it is. Okay. Live in 1967. And it was initially a bootleg, and it came out came out a few years. It's been a bootleg that's been floating around forever. I had all the bootlegs of it. But now they put out a record a few years ago, and it's live in 1967, John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, and it's got Peter Green on it, and it's 2 CDs long. It's very long, and it's great. Playing on that by Peter Green is just killer. And then there's a compilation that I have. I had trouble finding it on iTunes, but the compilation is So Many Roads, 1964 to 1974, and that's where I got the Telephone Blues and their version of Stormy Monday. So the Hard Road, that's the other record. Excuse me, Hard Road has Supernatural on it. I knew I had that wrong. I should know that. It's funny. I know about the stuff, what the songs were, what the playing was. I'm just always been bad with record titles. Hard Road. Supernatural is the song on there. Robin's record's called Supernatural. There we go. All right, Hard Road and Crusade. Yes, of course, Hard Road. Thank you, Hard Road. And then also, yeah, there's while we're at it, this is apparently why Eric Clapton does not like Jimmy Page anymore. They put let me get this. There's a song called Dragging My Tail. And hold on. I really hate Apple Music. Right? I didn't plan it. Okay, it was Dragging My Tail. And right. Hold on. And I found the record on iTunes, Apple Music, called Blues Anthology. And just Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton's got a bunch of other stuff. And there's another thing on there called Stake Drive. I'm Your Witch Doctor. I would play you some, but then Telephone Blues is also on that one. So you got to look around for it. Apparently that was a thing that Clapton got together with Jimmy Page and they recorded. They played some great stuff together, a ton of fun. And Andrew Loog Oldham, who was the manager of the Stones at that point, and I think he was working with the Yardbirds, demanded that Jimmy Page give him the recordings, and then he put it out. And Clapton, to this day, talks about how pissed he was because he felt they were just jamming, and I didn't know it was going to be released as a record. So I know he's upset about it, but there's some really nice playing on it. I think he should, I'm not telling him what to do, but he should. I'm happy it exists. So, but I get it. All right, guys, Beavis got a split. We're running late. I appreciate it. Everybody have a great night or day, wherever it is you live. BB, thanks so much, man. Thank you for doing this. I know you got to run. I don't know what time it was. And I'll see all you guys next week. And don't forget the Blues Rock Masters, 75% off. Boom. And also, if you want to work with me, I will be live in England at the end of November at Guitar Breaks. That'd be great to see some of you people in person. And yeah,